Hey, what's up, everybody? It's G here. Those of you who follow me know that I produce techno and offshoots of techno under a few different names. Link and Touring being my most prominent ones. Tech House Minimal as Link, and some techno, and then Dub Techno exclusively as Touring. Today on the channel, I'm going to do a review of something. This is my first time doing this, so please let me know in the comment section below if you'd like the review and what else you'd like me to review that I can review. I can only review so much. If they have demos, I'll review it. If they don't, then I might not be able to review it. But today I have PunchBox by D16 Gorup. Now I have a few of their plugins. Two I won in a contest, which was really cool. The other one's free as their limiter, and this one is their new kick synth. It's kind of like a competitor to Kick or Kick 2 that Sonic Academy did, I guess. I don't really have much of experience with kick synths because either I use my drum machines or samples or a combination of both. So I haven't really used a lot of kick synth, soft synths, so I would imagine that it's pretty something similar to drum machines. So this uses a combination of synthesis and samples. You have a bunch of different categories here, and then you have effects section here, and then the master output here. That's kind of cool. So I'll get in here. I'll kind of give a quick overview of it and what I know of it. This is just the demo version, so there's a few things that I can't do. At least there's at least one thing I can't do. You can load your own samples to this, like if you have your own kick samples from your drum machines or other samples you've collected over time. You can load into it, but in the demo version, I am not able to test that functionality out, unfortunately. It's quite a bummer, because actually what I wanted to do is take some synth samples that I have and load it into one of these slots here, like click top or tools, or even the sample section here, and use it like a little MIDI sample player, and to use the inline effects here. So get started here, and I'm just going to kind of work my way across and talk about what I like and don't like and whatnot. So first we got your click. So this is usually the tack transient of the kick, like that, you know, a lot of people use hi-hats for this, or a little bit of distortion or something like that. So I'm going to turn this on. Now there's nothing there because there's nothing loaded, so this is obviously sample based. You have a few different options. You have your volume, bread, so you go from kind of your stereo width here. So I would always put this in mono, but again, coming from the techno world, my kicks are always in mono. Like all my percussion except for the bus is in mono, because it doesn't need to be stereo. It's kicks, they don't need to be stereo. I mean, you can kind of pan your hats, I guess, and it helps add some stereo width, but again, in the techno world, that's not a big deal. So, and then you have your panning here, obviously. You have your high cut and low cuts. It gives you some shaping. You got your decay, and you have a tune. And then, obviously, this is where you go to load your samples. Now you can click Browse, and there's some preloaded ones here already. The user library, which I can't do anything about, but if you wanted to add your own samples to any of the sections in here, you just hit edit mode and then import samples. Like I said, here's some samples I wanted to try to load. These are actually tracks, but it wouldn't let me. It gave me an error message. So I was like, oh, boo. But I can understand it. And you can create your own tags, which is nice. So if you have a lot of samples and you were like, I'm making a techno track, or I'm making an EDM track, or I'm making, I don't know, whatever kids make these days, bass, deep dub house or something, future bass or something, trap, whatever. You can tag it with that, and then only those samples will show up. So that's really neat. So I'm just going to click next. So they got kind of fun names. So here's the first click, and I'll just run through a couple of these. So it's pretty cool. So, mono, really spread out the stereo there, which I don't know, I can't really hear it doing anything on the click here, but the pan I can. The stereo, not so much. It doesn't really do much on here. You can really crank the volume up. So let's put that back at 0 there, and then this is your high cut, obviously, to cut out all the high, and this actually has a little bit in there, so it goes all the way down to 2K hertz, and then all the way up to 22,000. So then your low cut here starts at same and goes up, so you can kind of cut out some, really make it kind of squishy there, right? Well, that's an interesting one. It's got a little bit of a distortion to it. One thing I did notice with this, and this is true with any of these that you turn on or all of them together, it runs very hot, as you can see here. I'm already clipping and I'm not doing anything, and which makes me wonder what this is reading at 0 compared to Ableton. There's like kind of a standard level that everything's at, and I'm not too sure what this is reading, and you probably adjust it here, would imagine, or not. That's just for looks, what do you know? So anyways, so yep, that's the click. Now we'll go to the tops. This is kind of like the meat at the top of the kick that really makes it, the click helps it sit just like at the top of the mix, so you can hear it even if there's a lot of stuff going on. The top kind of fills out that top spectrum. So turn this on and we'll just go next. So this would be like, a lot of times you would use this when you're layering kicks. So you would have your, like this part here would be your main beef, right? And you would use this to get the top end to fill out the top, so it's a little more punchier and gives a little more oomph to the face. I generally don't do this unless I'm doing like hard techno, but so I don't know how much of a use of this I would have. Maybe with some other stuff, if I was doing some layering or something like that, I could use this. On if I had like a noise sample or something on top of another synth or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't see a. And you can almost make this into a click just by adjusting the decay, right? So you can pitch it up, pitch it down, and it looks like it goes down by 6 semitones. It would have been nice if it did a full octave, but you get what you can take, right? This one also has a sample start adjust, so which is nice because you can, if you don't want the start of it, you can just adjust it out to only get part of it. So like this top part here, like the top and the tools and the kick part here remind me a lot of the Electron Rhythm with doing the sampler layering, right? So you'd have your synthesis going on here, your sample layered on top of it just to give it a little extra beef. So this I kind of understand and get. And then the tools section here, I'll turn this on and go. I mean, I guess this is just would be used for another added layer because it's pretty much has everything as the tops in this. Some different sounds, right? So it would help with maybe some sub bass or accent the click a little bit. Again, this has a sample start on it, so that's really neat. All right, move on to the kicks. There's some sample kicks in here. And then this gives you a lot of the same functions as these do here, with some added control over the attack. So how soon, how much of the front transient it cuts off there. And then, what does that say? Curve. Yeah, adjust the curve a little bit. So, and then overall volume, and you can high cut it. So like if you really like the sound of the sample, say you only wanted that and you wanted to add some top on here, right, to give you a little different flavor on the kick. So you have a lot of good options just right in here before you even get to the effects to really sculpt your sound and really make it into something that you want it to be, and that's real nice. So that's always enjoyable. And then they have a couple of different synth modes here. So I'm going to turn this off every minimal techno producer's favorite is the 909. Bill Collins, I think, said he wanted to be buried with his 909 at one point. So I don't blame him. I've never used one personally. I've never actually physically touched one, but they do sound nice from what I've heard. And then you got your typical settings here for like a 909 bass drum. You got your level, which is, you know, your volume, attack again, just shaping the front transient there. Tune. So this is similar to pitch, but it just adding some accent to the top end or taking some of it off. Allows you to get a little more deep kick, and then you get your pitch and then attack. You know, we already talked about that. Decay, so you can make some really long there, and then your tune depth, so how much the tune really affects everything. So you can get some really lasery kind of stuff out of here if you really wanted to. Some real kind of IDM stuff you can get going with this, which is cool. Some real flat sounding, rubbery kind of kicks, which is, you know, really cool about the 909. And then everyone's favorite in any genre is the 808, gray bass, just great beefy kick really, and it sounds pretty good. Like the 909 sounds like any other 909 I've ever, you know, sample or synth I've ever heard. Would imagine that they, you know, take some of this from some of their other plugins. Some of the synth engine that's behind this is probably behind one of their Drumazon plugins, and then there's, you know, some presets here for that. Again, the 808, so you have the tone and then decay, right? And then the sweep time to really get that nice long kick in there, and then just again the level. There wasn't much on the original 808, so I wouldn't expect there to be much on here. I mean, it would be nice if they added a few extra bits on here, but you know, I think they're trying to be true to the original kind of on this. So yeah, there's a classic 808 kick right there. Now we go on to the 606. Now, it's interesting that they skipped over the 707. Granted, the 707 doesn't have any really tweaking that you can do to it. It was just volume. And it was really just samples from the 909. But it was still cool, and it would have been cool if they just added that in here. You know, they might have some samples that are based off the 707 in the sample kick mode, but I don't know. And then again, you know, you got your decay, your volume, your tune, and your attack, so a little less, and you can get kind of crunchy with this. So it's definitely has that low bit sound to it because it was an older drum machine and it didn't have a very high bit depth on it. It was like somewhere like 8 or 12 or something. I don't know. I don't really remember what it was. I've never owned one. I've seen one. I almost bought one time, but it was in bad shape, and they wanted too much for it for the condition it was in. So, and then we have a sine generator, which a lot of kick synths generally are based off of. So you got your curves down here, your start frequencies, your sweep times, your decay, hold, and attack. Really, honestly, this is kind of like their own drum synth, really, because the 909 and 808 are kind of pretty similar to sine wave synths. Mousetrap, nice. A lot of decay on that though for having that kind of a little tighter there. So that's the kick stuff. I'm going to go back to a 909. Now we got our effects here. So we have a bit crusher, distortion, filter, and equalizer. So some really cool effects, and one of the advantages to the effects section is that you can move them around in any order that you want to process the sound differently. And another thing that I want to talk about here is this section here, the effects amounts, this, and the effects sends, and then the mix down after. So the mix down after basically takes the signal of these guys here, like the dry signal. So if you think of these like in Ableton as like a return track right here, or like a bus track or something like that, and a different different DAW. So you have your send here, right? This controls how much you're sending to your effects. Now you can do some parallel processing with that, which is nice. Or what you can do is, say you didn't want the kick to go to any of this, but the top. So I will do some distortion here, turn the bit crusher off, and then let me see if I can get a good amount on here. Alright, so what you can do with the kicks here is that I want the kick to not be affected by this, so I turn this all the way down, or I can turn it up. But what you can also do is use it like an inline effect. So say I wanted the kick to be only affected by the distortion, right? But nothing else. So what you would do is you take the mix down here after, click effects 3, and so what that essentially does is it takes the kick signal here, routes it over here to the output of the equalizer into the distortion. So if I go back to 4, see, it turns it off, and then like turns it back on. So if you wanted, you could potentially use these as insert effects rather than send effects. Now you may be like, well, what if I only wanted it for the kick, but I want this stuff to use the distortion too, or didn't want this to use the distortion, but I don't want the kick to be affected by anything else. One handy thing that you can do is, say you get your kick sounding all distorted, like how you want, and you're like, okay, I want to use this, but I also want to send some other stuff through and not get hit by the distortion. What you can do is you can click the export button here. What this does is it creates a WAV file, and then you can just drag it into another channel here, drops it right in there. You can close this, and then you can just go back like this, turn your distortion off. See, you know, you can leave it like that if you wanted to, but the distortion's off, and then you could, you know, turn your tops on and your click and not get affected by the distortion, but get the EQ and the filter that you want. So really add some crunch in there. So, and there's some nice presets in here too for the distortion and the bit crusher. And I'm guessing that the distortion, the bit crusher, is probably based off of their own distortion and bit crusher plugins. So I have one of them, which is this guy here, and I like it a lot. It's good for adding some nice top fuzz and fizzle to some stuff and really like screeching out some other stuff. I think the coolest thing that a lot of people have overlooked in some of the reviews that I've read and watched is this section down here. This really opens up a lot, and the effects end. Wow, it's real farty, right? So you can really get real creative with your sounds. The sends here, you have an effects mount down here for how much of the effect is actually applied as it passes through it. So you can do some really cool parallel processing with that. You know, you can get real granular with it, which is nice. So there are, looks like everything's MIDI assignable from what I can tell, which is really cool. So if you have like a controller that you want to use, or if you're using this in a live setting or something like that, you want to be able to control the filter, cutoff, or really any setting in here, which is D16 is really cool about that, as really assign, you can pretty much assign anything, MIDI, assign anything to anything. So that's really cool. And then you can turn the limiter on and off, which is nice. It is actually a pretty nice limiter. It can add some nice punch to the sound without killing it. And then you have your output meter here, and like I've said, it definitely clips pretty easily. So you're gonna want to drag this down. I don't know why it's so loud. It's a nice thing. So I didn't go through any of the presets on here, because really this is just my view and thought on this, and I like it a lot. I do think it might be slightly expensive. But that cost, I would imagine the majority of the cost comes from the samples that were created for it. Because D16 had a part in creating the samples, but I believe the majority of them were created by the Sounds of Revolution people, I believe. Which are really nice samples. They sound really good, really clean, crisp, and clear. So I think that's where part of the cost comes from. If this was like $50 US, no problem buy. Like, hands down, buy it, be done with it. At around $100 US, because I think it's like $80 euro, which should be about $100 US, give or take. It's a little expensive for me, I think. I like it. I may buy it, even though it's kind of expensive just to have on my laptop when I'm on the go, if I don't feel like using samples, or I just want to use this, in replace of like drum racks or using Ableton Sampler and having a bunch of effects here that I have to worry about. It's nice, it gives you nice limitations to really, force creativity out of you. So I'd say it's a buy, but I would wait for maybe a discount code or when they go on sale. Again, that's me personally. I understand that they need to price it so they can make money, and that's cool, whatever. But as someone who mainly uses hardware, would only use this on his laptop when he's on the go, I couldn't see myself spending, close to $100 for this. It just wouldn't get used enough to justify it for me. But if you're new to the game, you have some money you want to spend on a small software company that they make really good plugins, and you want to help support them to keep them around and keep making really nice plugins, I'd highly recommend it in that regard, because it's definitely cheaper than going out and buying a piece of hardware. It's affordable enough that you don't need to pirate it. And you can load your own samples. So if you do have a good sample pack or free sample packs that you like, you can load it in here with some really nice lush effects. These are a little stripped down compared to their full version counterparts, but they get the job done, and they sound great. It sounds good. So anyways, I've just rambled on for a while. I hope you enjoyed this long review. Again, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section. If you liked the review, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe and share or comment, and let me know what you didn't like. And if you think it sucks, give it a thumbs down. That's cool. It's your prerogative. It's a free world, kind of. So anyways, this has been G. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Later. Hey, so just real quick, I forgot to mention that I will have links in the description to purchase this, and more information about this and other great stuff by D16. So again, thanks for watching. Bye.